Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Books and Tea with KD. I'm KD Upton, your host, and today we're going on a little ride, a ride or journey into what got me into writing, the books that inspired me, and a bit about my own works and what's next up. So grab a cup of tea, a blanket, some coffee maybe, and let's get started. I've got to give credit where credit is due. My love for books all started with a big push from my mom. Her mother, huge avid reader. My father, huge prolific reader. My siblings. So this is all because of that encouragement, and I'm really grateful for that. Growing up, my dad was in the military, and that meant moving around a lot. We had so many new places, new faces, new schools constantly. I'm sure some of you out there that are listening can relate to that. But no matter where we ended up, no matter where we moved to, the first place we went to, the first stop, generally after settling in and getting all moved in, was the library for a library card. And that was like a jackpot. That was like going to Disney World, Disneyland, all in one. Getting a library card was magical, and it was like a free pass to endless possibilities and endless worlds, endless romances, endless whodunits and mysteries and action adventures. It was really magical. My summers growing up were all about long days, and a lot of it I was encouraged to get out and run around just like every other kid on the block. And we'd go running and we'd shoot hoops, or we'd ride our bikes until the sun went down, which was really late, or we got called in by our parents to eat, drinking from the hose, and playing tag and swimming if we get to the pool, and just a lot of fun. But there were also long days full of reading, and long nights too, full of reading. It was a rare opportunity indeed, and I never did it during the school year because I had school. But there were some times at night, especially when I was really into a book, that I brought out my flashlight and kind of formed a tent underneath my covers, and I'd turn on the flashlight and I'd read books under the covers until way past my bedtime. My parents, I'm looking back on it now, I'm sure my parents knew about this and were okay with it, but at the time I didn't think that they knew. And I would stay up and I would read. Those books were really my friends. Moving around so much, it was difficult. It was difficult making really good friends. I did have some, and one is really all you need, a really good friend. And but those pages, those characters really came to life for me and became my friends, and they were cherished, and I loved them, and I loved going on those adventures. I could be anyone, I could be somebody different. I didn't have to be the person that I was, and a lot of the time there were places that I just did not fit into and got picked on a lot because I was the new kid. In those books, though, I could be anyone else. I could go anywhere. I could live so many different lives just from my own room. And that meant the world to me. It gave me an opportunity to express myself and my emotions, and just a love for books. One of my all-time favorite authors as like a teenager has got to be Mercedes Lackey. And honestly, I mean, think about her name, Mercedes. It's just cool and sophisticated and elegant and adventurous. I discovered her Valdemar series as a young teen through my sister. She was reading her at the time, and wow, she is quite the writer. It was a game changer for me. Her books are epic fantasy, filled with talking horses. They didn't talk per se. I mean, they were like mental telepathy horses, and they had their own superpowers, and we had heralds of the kingdom of Valdemar, and we had assassins, and there was romance in there too. But they were filled with just magic and courage, bravery, perseverance, and of course friendship. A lot of the time that I was lacking, they made me feel like anything was possible, and I loved them. She's a really great author, and she's very prolific. The first one that I read, that I was introduced to, I believe she had written a book in the 1960s, like 1964, something like that. I'm not quite sure. So she was pretty young when she did that. The first book that was published that, and then she continued writing on after that, was like 1987, I think. And that was with Arrows of the Queen. And what I pronounce her name, the main character's name is Talia, Talia. Maybe it's Talia, but Talia. It's about Talia's journey as a child, and she gets picked by this magical horse, Roland, and they go on this massive journey. And she was kind of taken out of her own world and brought into this other one, and it was mystical, it was magical, it was scary. Was she accepted? Some people did, some people didn't. But the way Mercedes Lackey built these worlds was and still is so inspiring, and I go back from time to time and reread them. They're that good. I remember thinking though, wow, how could someone write like this? I also, when I was a little bit younger than that, my sister was involved in a school project in elementary school where eventually I did too, but we had to write a story, like a short story, and then it was illustrated, and the winner got their pages illustrated, and then they got an award, and there was a dinner. Well, my sister, she won that, and I remember thinking at the time, wow, people can do this for a living? Is this for real? Like, I can live inside my head, create characters, and they're rewarded for that. They get applause for that. They get awards for that. Just for simply creating characters and living in my imagination. I've had a wonderful, enriched imagination thanks to the encouragement of my family. And that was the aha moment that I could do that. I could write stories. I can do that. After Mercedes Lackey, then as I was older, then came Charlene Harris and her Sookie Stackhouse. And that is very adventurous and fantasy and vampires and fairies and the paranormal. But of course, there's always the traditional mystery writers that I fell in love with, Agatha Christie and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I dressed up for book report in the 8th grade as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and had to give a book report. We had to dress up as the author, and of course he was my favorite author at the time, so of course I dressed up like him. Borrowed one of my dad's suit jackets and made an attempt at a pipe and put a hat on and everything. It was wonderful, and I got a really good grade, but to me it was just the dressing up part and being that author for a day. That was wonderful. These authors are and were stellar in their craft, and they know how to write mystery stories, traditional mysteries, cozy mysteries. It always surprises me that Agatha Christie is considered the queen of, she's considered the queen of mysteries, and she is. But what confounds me is the cozy mystery aspect, because some of her books, a lot of her books are pretty bloody. But I love to write like her, so If you're into her books, perhaps you'd like some of mine. I'm no Agatha Christie. I'm no Charlene Harris. I'm Katie Upton. So I'm perfecting my craft and I'm loving it all along the way. But my books tend to take a bit of Charlene Harris's and a bit of Agatha Christie's and a bit of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and it's my own style. And these authors are a part of that, and they're a huge part of me getting the gumption and the courage to set off on my own path and become a writer. And I will be becoming a writer until my last breath, and because I love it so much. Of course, maybe one of these days I'll get to meet Charlene Harris, who knows. Those are some big shoes to follow after. But I also have to say, it sounds wonderful, and it is wonderful. Writing isn't always smooth. It's not always a smooth process. It's not always smooth sailing, as my parents often say. There's definitely points along my path where I didn't believe in myself, and sometimes I don't. There's a thing called imposter syndrome that rears its ugly head quite too often, in my opinion, for a lot of us that are out there. No matter what we're doing, we can feel like we're imposters, and somebody will find us out. We're not all that great. I've written a lot of books, and I'm continuing to write books, and I've had so many people tell me, no, these are, and I have some good reviews. You would think that we would start believing in ourselves, and I think that we're developing, and my books also aren't for everyone. How could they possibly be? And there is that imposter syndrome. There is that time where I'm too much into my head thinking, oh, this is terrible. I think most people can relate to that. Most people can, if not all. So that little voice inside your head, that it pops up from time to time, and it still does. Like just the other day, I spent 2 hours, I think a little over 2 hours, working on 2 sentences. Yeah, two sentences. It takes me 2 hours. It was because they weren't right. So as you read, what I do is I write, and I have my outline, my skeletal outline, but I get off my outline quite often, and then I go artistically a different direction a little bit, and I'll get back onto my outline at some point. But when I'm writing, I'll just go ahead and write, and a lot of the time I hear music. I have music playing in the background, so because it helps me think of the words creatively. But I'll reread it and make sure it's okay, and if something sticks out and it's just not conveying the picture, because I like people that have mental pictures of what the scene looks like, then I'll spend 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours if I have to, figuring out why those 2 sentences or 1 sentence or that paragraph doesn't work. And I will sit on it until I'm good with it. Now, I know that's not a process that a lot of the time they tell you to do. Most of the time, get it on the paper, then go back and perfect it. I cannot do that. I have tried. It does not work for me. I need it to read a certain way before I move on, because it can affect what happens down in further into the book. That's my way of writing. It's not for everyone, and yet my books are well received. So my editor really likes my books, thinks that they're pretty good, so I believe her because she is a really fantastic editor. So she thinks my books are all right. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. Why reinvent the wheel? But yeah, I'll spend 2 hours. The other day I spent 2 hours on 2 sentences. So these books are all my own. I come up with the ideas on my own, And I do have an editor, a professional editor, and she is contracted by one of the big publishing houses. So I did get really lucky there. And, but yeah, so they're all my own words. It can get hard at times, and especially when we have that voice in our heads, telling us, oh, you're just an imposter. So what do I do in those times when I'm telling myself basically I'm not cut out for it? I tell myself that the characters have stories. These characters become more like I said, friends and family members, and they have their own stories to tell. And so I just need to get out of the way and let them tell it. I do have a great imagination. Almost, it's a blessing and a curse, because I can watch a lot of the shows, the mystery shows. I'm into the Murdoch mysteries right now, and love that show. If you guys haven't watched it, and you can, I highly advise it. You watch it, I highly recommend it, because it's fantastic. And but it's, I can tell what's happening, and I can 99.9% of the time determine the whodunit. But it, so it's like, how can I enjoy this? But I do dissect those TV shows, the shows and the movies, the Knives Out. I'm always trying to figure out like who done it, and see how they, the storyteller crafted it, and where the red herrings are, and that sort of thing. It's fun too. That's fun too. But it does take some of the fun out of it. But I'm always perfecting my craft. But as far as the imposter syndrome, just keep writing, just keep going. Let the characters talk for themselves, because they almost write themselves. Almost. My love for storytelling and all that reading, those late nights, led me to write my own series. And I've got multiple. I'm into the supernatural action adventure. I also have, some people call them cozies. I do have cozies in the Caitlin Doll Mysteries. And then there's the Daisy Day Mysteries. They're more traditional, hardcore, with paranormal elements in there. And then I have the Skylar Knight Ghost Mysteries. Obviously paranormal, it's the Ghost Mysteries. She's a friend of Caitlin. I do a lot of spin-off series. I just enjoy that. And Skylar is that, and she has a particular background which I won't spoil. It is paranormal though, and I love that. And then we have Anna. She is in the Protectorate series. That's the supernatural action adventure series. It's gritty, it's darker. Daisy Day is not it's a traditional mystery. It's a traditional whodunit, with a little bit of paranormal in there. So, but the one that really got me started was the Protectorate. It's Anna, Catherine Caldwell. That's her name. The Protectorate series. I had a fascination with angels. I still do. And I had been brewing the story for years and years and years, and all throughout college, all throughout my 20s, and then I just decided to write. It took me years to write it because I had that imposter syndrome. But then I decided to publish it. I've gotten an editor and published this book, and I've had people leave wonderful reviews saying that, or telling me that they couldn't put it down. They loved it. They'd like to see it up on the screen, which is crazy for me. I love that. I love that it is spoken to so many people, and that they really enjoy my books, and that's wonderful. I would love to make a living at this. It's very difficult to make a living at writing books. That is my goal. I'm not there. But telling these stories and telling these characters' journeys and arcs and planning them and putting my darlings through the ringer, it's a lot of fun and it's cathartic, and I just really love it. And I don't know what I'd do without my writing, quite honestly. So back to my books, Caitlin, she shares a little bit of my own life, and she's a criminology. At the time that you meet her in Graded for Murder, she's in a criminology class, but she's a pre-med student, and she's a bit of an outsider. She has an overbearing mother and who wants her to be a surgeon and that sort of thing, and she's fighting against that. She's trying to find her own footing in this world. She's an adorable dad that she really loves, but he kind of doesn't interfere with her mother and that direction that her mother's trying to get her to go down. And she has a really wonderful paternal grandmother that lives in Norway, that's Norwegian, and she's the real feisty one and really supports her. And she barely makes an appearance in the book, but she'll make more appearances in future books. But Caitlin is kind of an outsider. She has a couple of friends, and she's learning how to trust her own instincts and trust herself. And she's thrust into this world of danger and whodunits and murder, and so it tests her fortitude, her courage, her bravery. Creating Caitlin allowed me to explore friendship and bravery and putting in a little bit of the supernatural in there as well. And of course, some good old-fashioned murder mysteries. I love the murder mysteries. I can't get away from them. That is definitely my genre. Mystery genres, I think, with some supernatural elements thrown in. Speaking of the other books, not just writing, but I'm an avid reader. I wish I could read more than 2 books a month, but with the writing and the business side of it, it's pretty much hard to do. I also have severe dry eye, so it makes it harder. And audiobooks, I love them. It's just that they're too expensive. So I get them where I can. I'll go to YouTube, and sometimes you can hear books on YouTube, and I really appreciate those authors that do that. Some of mine are up on YouTube as well. If you're listening to that and need a cheaper way to listen to get your books. But some of my favorite authors, again, Charlene Harris, Southern supernatural mystery author, Agatha Christie, the queen of whodunits. So I do say that I make it a point to read 2 books a month. One is for my podcast, and the other is that's to promote other authors. I try and focus on indie authors, but any authors will do. And another for the month is for the sheer pleasure of it. They both are wonderful to read because they can both be so different in the different genres. And so I get to have the cozy mystery genre, and then I get to review that, and then I get whatever I want. If it's romance, if it's action adventure, if it's sci-fi, love time travel, then I'll read that. So it's fun. I just make sure that I get 2 kind of separate genres in there for the month. They're guilty pleasures. And at least it doesn't add on weight, right? I can indulge. I wish I could read 12 every month. I really do. But then where would I find the time to write? As for what's next, I'm thrilled to announce that I do have new stories coming that are in the works, because these characters have to have their stories told. But I do have a list for Caitlin Doll series. I have a new launch at the end of this month for Death on Fraternity Row. It's the prequel to Graded for Murder of the Caitlin Doll. Caitlin is in her sophomore year, and so she's got her pal Skylar with her and Olivia. and they are tackling a murder mystery on campus. So Death on Fraternity Row is coming out. I encourage you to look for that one. I'm also working on more of the Protectorate series, and I've got another Daisy Day, the third one in the Daisy Day. I'm working on that right now. Currently, I'm writing the second book of Ominous Visions, Grave Decisions, the Skylar Knight Ghost Mysteries. I also have, and that one's well over halfway done. And then I've got, so that explores more of her magical background. I'll say that. And then there's another, so I wrote a book with the input from my newsletter subscribers. That was super fun because they got to pick character names, submit them, and then pick and submit, the murder weapons and the setting, and then I took all that and what they voted on, and then I created a novella out of it, and they love it. And enough of them wrote me back saying, please make this a series. So that one, it's the Cosmo Pritchard mysteries. That one I am also working on, as well as I'm working on more of a teenage murder mystery action adventure kind of thing. And so I've got, as you can see, I've got a ton of different stories I'm working on. Plus, I'm trying my hand at time travel. I love time travel. It's like a detective, but it deals with time travel. And then there's another story that takes place like a dystopian kind of story. So yes, I'm trying my hat at different genres, and we'll see what happens. But as you can tell, I've got a head full of ideas, and I've got to write them. I've got to check them out. But I'm also, so I'll post to my Patreon. I do have a Patreon page if you're into that, and there is a free level for that, a free tier. I've got a YouTube channel, In Storied World, at In Storied Worlds on YouTube. Please sign up, subscribe to that, because that always helps me, and I'm trying to pay my bills just like everybody else. So if you could if you have an account to YouTube, subscribe to that. That'd be wonderful to stay up to date on my stuff, because I'll be doing a lot of book reviews on here of other people. To stay up to date about my own stuff, please subscribe to my newsletter. Go to katieuptonwrites.com. There's a subscribe page. Please subscribe to that. You can get and help write other books, have input into the other books, and you have a direct line to me, direct access to me. So if you're enjoying what you hear, please check them out. Check out my website, my Patreon, and of course, sign up for the newsletter. And sometimes, because that newsletter, the newsletter subscribers, they got Barn of Shadows for free. So just saying, you get some perks there, you get some discounts, get behind the scenes looks and things at my books too. Writing has been super fun. It's still a process. It's not easy, but I definitely wouldn't trade it for anything else. And it's wonderful to wake up every day and get the opportunity to do what I love and to be with the characters and craft them and create these books for you. I just love it. And I love sharing all this with you, my listeners. It's really a dream come true. So whether you're a writer, whether you're just, a reader, or someone who just loves a good story, remember there's a book out there for you. There's a genre for you. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, happy reading, and keep believing in the power of stories. And find that next book. Happy reading, guys.